Today's episode is brought to you by the Hippocratic Collective. Check out all our shows and content at hippocratic-collective.com. I am so excited to have Dr. Mel Thacker joining me today. She is one of the co-founders at the Hippocratic Collective and also a prolific podcaster. She's the host and creator of Surgeons with Purpose, which is out every Monday. But what's so fun, and I'm just extremely pumped, we have her here today because Mel and I both attended a once-in-a-lifetime event last weekend in Philly, where PearsonRavitz, Clove, and the Hippocratic Collective all co-hosted a luxe streetwear, kind of like modern fashion week vibes, experience for resident physicians.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was an amazing success. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. No, absolutely. I mean, we joke because like I only have one setting. Like, yeah, I don't practice ENT anymore, but I would say that I take like a surgeon's laser focus and doggedness into like literally whichever industry I'm working in, which for the past 3 weeks, nonstop, it meant event planning. And I think that the way that I would describe it is that even during the event, I was looking around and I was thinking, and I saw all these people like connecting, laughing, just like legitimately the room was filled with joy, like unmitigated joy. And also, in addition to joy, beauty. And the beauty was like the decor, the layout, certainly the people themselves. And I was looking around and I was like, okay, this meets expectations. Because honestly, and you can probably relate, I think like a lot of doctors can relate, I had really, really high expectations for the event. So I was looking around and I was like happy. I was like, meets expectations. We set the bar super high and we nailed it. But then what's so crazy, Mel, is that the reception to the event exceeded expectations, which is amazing. I feel like I went into it and I was like, people are going to have a very nice time. Kind of the way where, all of us have been through like wedding seasons. Like you go to a wonderful event, it is thoughtful, you have love and affection for the people there. Like, but I don't know that many people who are like, oh, attending this wedding or like this event like changed my life, other than if they're talking about like the Eras tour or something,
Right.
And so, but I think that it has just been, it's meant even more to everyone than I ever could have dreamed.
Yeah, no, the reception was amazing. And just being in a room with all these incredible humans who are not just incredibly intelligent, as we know, but also creative. That was what threw me. I'm realizing all of this creative talent that goes untapped and quite literally gets murdered when we go into training. And it goes to show how important it is to really diversify ourselves and to not let a singular profession unilaterally like trap us in kind of one identity or in one part of our brain. And we really do have to keep that avenue open into the right hemisphere where we have all of our creativity and our connection and our collective presence versus modern society, which is very comparative, compare and despair, and dog eat dog, and like when you win, I lose, versus everybody can win. It just felt very much like everyone was rooting for each other, which feels so good. It feels very different than medical culture.
Than the scarcity mindset that is imbued within us from like pre-med on. Literally, when you're a pre-med, they teach you like be competitive, be cutthroat. A spot that, your colleague gets is a spot that you don't get. And I really love what you're saying about even like the diversification, because I totally agree with you. And this is turning on its head what the antiquated medical education and medical practice culture is, which is like, if you're diversified, like if you have creative interests outside of your clinical learning and practice, then that makes it seem like you're not that committed to being a doctor. Okay, next. And it's like, I see the paradigm shift is happening. I am doing absolutely everything I can to hasten this paradigm shift, which is to say, many of the best doctors in the world, what makes a great physician and a great person is part of that diversity.
Yeah, 100%. And I've talked to so many different surgeons who do not know who they are underneath their surgeon identity. And that is so dangerous, because what are you going to do when something happens to your hands? What are you going to do when you age out of surgery? If all you have is surgery, for a lot of my clients, I coach clients who are surgeons, and my listenership is surgeons. It's such an important thing to kind of diversify your revenue stream and diversify your identity. So if one identity is threatened, you're like, I can just pivot over here. Like, I'm good to go.
And I definitely appreciate that. I get what you're saying. But even that to me is coming from this scarcity mindset standpoint, in terms of like, what if you lose your ability to work as a surgeon? Then, then you're not going to have anything. It's like, I would push it. I would take it even multiple steps further, which is to say, a person who only has surgery is not living a 3-dimensional life.
They're not.
And a 1-dimensional life is not the best life that you could be living, like, legitimately. And I just mean that, like, in terms of, I experienced it. So I believe that from every aspect, in terms of, like, I was at my worst probably about end of residency, is when I was so 1-dimensional, just an ENT surgeon. Not only that, but in terms of how I showed up to rooms, I was just not, I was the smallest version of myself, and quite unpleasant. Surgeons are not known for, like, their pleasantness, their creativeness, their ability to, like, be open to the world and experiences and other people. So just truly, yes, on one hand, you should protect your ability to, survive and make an income. So you should diversify from that standpoint. But also, if you have any interest in, like, connecting with other people, being a likable person who gets to have the human experience, you need to diversify. Just being a surgeon and practicing as a surgeon is not the epitome of the human experience.
Yeah. And, it's so funny because, like, all of my clients come back to the same thing. They're like, what I love about this job after this year of coaching with you? They're like, I love connecting with people. They thought they would get into it and feel, I don't know, joy or elation every single time you save a life or fix whatever, a broken bone, or do whatever that that is your specialty. But once you get into it and you're just working, you completely lose sight of all of the wins, and you're just focusing on avoiding the losses. You don't go home sitting there like high-fiving yourself because you operated on 5 people that day. You're just like, oh, I got through it without any complications. And it's like your job is kind of like juggling bombs, and at any second you could drop one, and it's just not a sustainable way to live. But once you shift your brain, when we work together, and, like, they come back down to, oh my gosh, like, the thing that brings me joy, that I love about this, is the connecting with the patients. Coming back to kind of like this event, it is like we're a connecting species. We're a social primate. Like, we have to connect with each other. That is the most important thing about being human.
Yes, absolutely. And to recap the event, I think that, like, one thing we need to get straight right away is just that, like, the Hippocratic Collective is not a group of medfluencers. Like, we were never that. And I know that we all put a lot of care and intention behind, like, making that clear, like, it does. I always respond. It breaks my heart when people reach out and they're like, hey, I have this, like, creative pursuit or business. I do it on the side. I don't have a social media following. Is there a way we could work together? I'm always like 100%. Like, and I'm glad you're answering the call, because we do want you. Social media, quote unquote, following is not like a prerequisite. And I think that what was really special about last weekend as well is that people saw that. Like, sure, I would say more than 50%, perhaps we'll say 60-65% of attendees did have a social media presence. But that wasn't what they were invited for. That was not how, like, the guest list was intentionally curated. It was a group of physicians who are also artists, or even a few of them who aren't artists are very active in, like, social advocacy, patient advocacy, actually setting up care for, like, indigent patients who can't afford surgery, right? Like, I mean, that type of work is so, so important. And those are the types of doctors that we want to do whatever we can to amplify the voice of. And so, again, like, I'm so excited because I know that there's going to be more events, and, you know, we'll dive into our recap here today, but like we're going to do these events in multiple cities, and we are not calling like, you know, we're not just like calling all medfluencers, especially because we live in an era right now where in 2025, let's say that somebody has a huge following and they just post their outfits and that's kind of it, just vibes and outfits. That doesn't mean now what it used to mean 5 years ago. 10 years ago, that was king. You know, that's how the first like triangle bikini influencers and stuff came up, which I love that for them. I'm not even knocking that. I'm just saying that that's like not part of the HC vision. And we really can't be, I think, like too clear about that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like artists, creators, creating something and having an impact. You know, it's like the next Paul Farmer who comes along will be hopefully part of our group. And there really is something to be said about creating and having an impact. It's hard, like you said, you know, that scarcity mindset. We're so used to staying within the lines. We follow the rules. We are given a syllabus and we follow it to the T and we get all the external validation for it. We're overachieving people pleasers. That's kind of what we've been cultured to become. And now we're asking people to kind of go outside the box, to kind of go to your edge and look outside a little bit and create and be bad at something and fail and go out into the world and do scary things. That is what we're asking people to do, because the more physicians do that, the more we can kind of change things like a broken healthcare system. We're never going to change it if we're so used to staying in the lines and saying, yes, sir, thank you, may I have another?
Yeah, maintaining the status quo is just obviously not working. And
No.
And I do think, you know, I really appreciate, I know that you work with a lot of, not just early, but late career physicians. What we've been doing with these events, and what was really fun last weekend, though, you saw like the youthfulness there. Because like, especially for, you know, connecting in person and resident events and things like that, like, yes, we're getting the younger crowd because guess what? It's way easier to, I think, have a positive effect and like give convincing role models to the next generation of doctors than it is to the mid and late career ones.
Yeah, exactly. No, we definitely need to get people early. I mean, I can't help as you're talking, but think when I was a fellow and watching this general surgeon at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Brighton and kind of talking about how he was watching all of these people coming in for ECT. What is it? Like electric shock therapy for depression.
Electroconvulsive.
Yeah. Refractory depression. And he's watching them come through before the OR because they would have this area off in the OR where they would kind of bring those patients. And he's sitting there watching them. And he's like, you know, if that worked for frustration, I would definitely do it. Like this 50-something, 60-something-year-old guy whose baseline is just frustration. And it was like, why is that what we're like reaching for? Why is that normalized? And I look at all the colleagues I know who are in their 50s and 60s, and their baseline is frustration. Like that's not something we should be seeking to become and emulate.
Totally agree with you. Quite miserable cats. Like I think that was part of my impetus, even like, I mean, for years as a resident, even as a med student, like I just can't think back on my whole 13 years working towards my career in medicine and like knowing a lot of doctors who appeared fulfilled or at peace or anything like that. And that goes back to, like, I know I made the right decision for me because when I was a resident, I was obsessed with the show. I'm still obsessed with the show, but Severance on Apple TV.
So good.
And I mean, that's like the perfect resident show. I would have been severed so fast. If they had that technology, I would have been severed so fast. And it's like, right now I'm sitting here. This is like the first time in my adult life that I have a life where like I wouldn't want to be severed. I am accepting of all the different facets and like I'm here for it.
Yeah, isn't that so funny? Because that is basically what this guy was saying. He's like, hey, if you could sever me, I would definitely be severed and go to work.
100%.
Like they're living from vacation to vacation. That is not the human experience. I mean, I know it's cliche, like live your best life, but you can't have a unidirectional, a unilateral life. It will not fulfill you. You will end up with baseline frustration.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so for the event and the event recap, you know, we really started planning this. We had less than a month turnaround because a lot of things like serendipitously fell into place. We had, of course, such great partners for the event. And basically, we worked backwards from how we wanted the event to feel and what group of like legitimately change makers, tastemakers we wanted in the room. Because that's very powerful. And like as physicians, we just tend to be so siloed. We don't organize, more than half of our attendees were all local in the area, like Philly or New Jersey. A couple people came down from New York City and such. Like there was the New England cohort for sure. But we had people flying in from around the country, including Mahitha from the Pacific Northwest. She for sure won the farthest distance traveled record.
Yeah, she came from all the way from the other side of the country.
Which I think is something like, I think that worked really well. Mel, as we look towards like, well, what worked? What do we want to bring to future events? I think that the mix of like maybe 60-70% of people local, as well as inviting docs who are able to travel or where it works out for their schedule and bandwidth. Like, I think that was a nice mix. And I know that there's like a lot of follow-up coffee dates happening in Philly over these next few weeks.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that picking a city. I mean, I've already been hearing Dallas. They want us to come to Dallas, Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so, there are many cities that we can visit and bring this type of energy to.
100%. Yep. I just got back from New York City late last night. We're looking there. I know I think Chicago and New York City this fall are kind of like on the immediate radar, but I think that all of those elements of it worked well. I think that, we spent so much time on all these details. Like, especially I would shout out Lauren from PearsonRavitz. She and I work very closely together. We also collaborated with the Makers Table out of Philly, and Alex and Sydney, had a wonderful vision and the ability to like put that vision into action. But basically with all of us, I would say we just spent so much time on the minutia, the crazy little details. Like, I think I spent several hours on the menu. And it wasn't the menu itself, because we just kind of like picked the food and that part was fine. It was like some font issues. And then like the hex code on the yellow slightly changed. But I mean, it was all this back and forth. And while that can feel like drudgery when you're in it, that's the type of stuff where I think the attendees, they feel that when they're at the event. They don't know why. They can't point to like, well, this tiny thoughtful touch is like what put it over the edge for me. They just experience the whole thing in totality. And I think that there's such an art to event planning. And so, yeah, you know that I love that. And I'm bringing my type A, like surgeon's eye, to the design and rollout of these events.
Whose idea was it to put the shoe in the ice and the flowers in the shoe?
So this is very interesting because the flowers in the shoe, that has been done before. Clove themselves, I love what they do. I view them as like pretty avant-garde and like pushing the envelope for healthcare related fashion and things like that. So they have done a couple different great projects and collabs in the past where they built florals out of shoes. They also did a Fabletic Scrubs collab this spring. And again, like I've seen their visuals, really great. So we actually took that as a starting off point and we jumped off from that because we basically were like, at first, level 0, like first meeting for this event, we were like, yeah, what about florals and shoes? And then it kind of was like, and me, like we work together. And I'm always like, how can we reimagine this? And how can we push that boundary, right? I don't want to do what has been done before. And so we were like, what else can be done with the shoes? Which is what led to the freezing into an ice sculpture. And then also at dinner for that tablescape, you'll notice the shoes were not on the table with florals being built out of them. They were hung from that bar that spanned the length of the table longitudinally. And so you got this like aerial hanging shoe experience. So I love it. But I mean, like, that's how those conversations literally came about. Like, you always got to start somewhere. So we started with a visual that we knew that we really loved. But then we said, it's not good enough to, like, maintain the status quo. I literally believe that.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. People will not know. It's a feeling. I mean, this is creation. It's a process. You can't just go to Canva and like throw something out. And I think that's what also kills creativity is we have these kinds of things like Canva makes everything so easy, and you can just kind of create any sort of insignia or branding pretty quickly. But if it doesn't represent you and you don't go through that process, and it doesn't take you, it takes time. It can take hours of thoughtfulness. You will not have that same effect where people will see the thing and be like, wow, I feel
Yeah, and
moved
feel
versus
the
I feel
heart.
empty.
No, feel the heart. I totally agree with you. Like AI could not have planned this event.
No.
Obviously, I'm biased, but like they
Yeah.
could not have. And I think that what's also really special, and I care a lot about this. I'm very invigorated by it. Like I'm galvanized, but it's because I also believe that this event, whether or not people can put their finger on it, that a physician designed it, that is part of like what shone through. Because at the end of the day, physicians are, and you and I both say this all the time, I'm sure, is like we're unique cats. Like
Yeah.
the physician experience is so unique, even the healthcare worker experience. And so like an event planner, a person who's never met a physician, there are going to be things that aren't quite right. And actually, I will use an example. This is such a funny story from an initial planning meeting. This was like this was a exploration, like truly one of the earliest planning meetings. Okay. An industry professional is pitching some ideas. They're like, all right, so I was thinking like these possible venues and kind of vibes. They were like, okay, so this is an event for doctors. So, of course, like uber, very healthy, very clean, like, no alcohol, like a menu of greens. And I was like, I'm going to stop you. Have you met any doctors? And I was like, what, may I ask like what kind of doctor you're thinking of? Because every doctor I know is an alcoholic and doesn't eat many greens. Like, no offense. But I mean, you know what I mean? And I think that maybe what that person, again, in a different industry, they might have been thinking of like, I'm really not sure. A caricature of a doctor or a functional medicine person or just something totally different, not like an MD. So you have me to think that there was like even alcohol at this event. And I was like, honestly, bring like a significant amount. Like we're off call. So,
Yeah, I had no kids. I didn't have to drive.
seriously, like mom's night out. So I think that was great. Another thing I want to call out specifically that really took things to the next level, and I'm like learning as we iteratively improve on this process, right? The evolution of the spaces, like the evolution of the evening, because you guys, this party was not like in one room the whole night. And honestly, any rep dinner can be in a back room at a restaurant, like a private room at a restaurant.
Right.
So what this was we had 3 different spaces. We specifically selected a venue for the ability to move through spaces and evolve over the course of the evening. The first part was a cocktail hour in the art gallery inside. That was standing. A lot of great mingling. We had the custom cocktail called Page Me Later. Then part 2 was the seated dinner outside in the central courtyard, that gorgeous long table and kind of tablescapes out there. And then the third part of the evening was downstairs in the speakeasy for like desserts and the dessert cocktail. We did espresso martinis for that called MD Aware, which were like so fun. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts, like, and obviously your experience moving through the spaces. I think that it allowed people to kind of mingle differently than one seated dinner.
Yeah, the movement was everything. Like you have to move through the spaces. Every event where there is like, okay, here's like the pre-dinner area, here's the sit-down dinner, and that long hallway. I love like a long table. That was so cool. And then moving to the speakeasy is just the coolest thing. I can't help but think of this meeting I go to called Snot Force. I pretty much go every fall, and they in Louisville, Kentucky, and they often rent out a museum where one of the walls actually turns, like you don't know which wall it is. It turns into a speakeasy. It like,
oh my gosh,
it kind of, you're like, guess which one it is, and you kind of have to push at the end of the evening. You're like, which one is the one that will take me into the last part, like the last room of the night.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that energetically there was something like really special about that. And then also just truly, getting an assigned seat at a dinner, I put a lot of time and thought and effort into making that seating chart, trying to get a good flow going, which I think was a success. Like I think people felt that magic there, but at the end of the day, I think about an hour 10 minutes in each space worked really well, even from an attention span standpoint, and yeah, just giving people something new.
I love that. Hold on. No, I just think it was awesome. I mean, just being present with all of these incredible human beings and also being like in a mid-career physician, it's fun to see the young people, like people generations younger than I am, and I'm like, okay, they get it. They're not drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yes. Yep, I love that for them. I totally agree with you. And we're just happy too. I mean, I'm really grateful that you were there. Like, yes, they are smarter than all of the preceding generations. Their tolerance of bullshit is like lower, which we love that. But it's also, I think, wonderful to see mid-career physicians who are like really good role models and kind of championing that for them. So, what I wanted to shout out real quick as we wrap up are a couple of like the great artists who quite literally made it possible, which includes Dr. Ryan Montoya. He made custom art illustrations that were featured throughout the evening. And again, that like those types of touches, that's so chic. It makes such a big difference, I think, in the attendee experience, and his work's just incredible. So we're super fans. Shout out to Dr. Montoya for that, including the custom 3-way logo that he created, which has it built in the elements of PearsonRavitz, Clove, and the Hippocratic Collective into one cube, like 3-way collab. And then we had one of my favorite photographers on site, Andy Wynn from the HC. And he came down from Yale, he traveled in for it. And we always love working with him. Some of his Clove shots were just like swoon worthy. And then really, I have to shout out, this would not have been possible without PearsonRavitz.
Yeah.
And so, they put on this event for all of us. And I genuinely just have to shout them out because they're a physician life and disability insurance company that like genuinely really cares about physicians. They educate and advocate for them. And what's different is that they do it with Dr. Stephanie Pearson at the helm. And she's a physician herself. So again, I at the end of the day, I signed with them when I was a PGY4 ENT resident because one of my co-residents recommended Stephanie. She was like, yeah, I really like her. She's just very real, clear communicator. And for us as female physicians, there's just like something really special about like getting to work with other female physicians. For better or for worse, like there's this club that we're all in. And what I really admire about like PearsonRavitz as a brand, what stands out is like basically all the work that they're doing to actually invest in the next generation of physicians. And we see that literally looking at events like this put on, especially for residents. And then we have to shout out Clove, who they have built so intentionally. I love their eye. You can really see like the ethos and the intention and the heart right behind the Clove team. And you see that in their shoes and in all of their designs that they put out. And so they support physicians as well. I mean, this is why it was such a beautiful alignment, right? Like all three of our brands. What we care the most about is really like physician support in a meaningful and not lip service way.
Yes. Exactly. I mean, it's time for us to be real. We're so used to pretending. It's so nice to just have real, authentic conversations with salt of the earth people. And like Stephanie Pearson really is that. I met the creator of Clove, and he was awesome. Joe,
yep,
yeah.
The founder of Clove was there.
And Scotty Ravitz was amazing. And yeah. It's just wonderful. We need that.
And that's what's nice too. Like just the fact that there was, the people from those teams were in attendance. But again, like in kind of a quiet way. That's what's classy. Like I'm just saying, even people who see some of the recaps and photos and footage, like those people from the companies were not like front and center. The night wasn't about them. They didn't make it about them. That's kind of a classy move. And that, I think, is how people actually like earn loyalty.
Yes. I mean, it's like now that I learn more about like selling and business, there is a way to go about business and selling where you're doing it in a clean way. It is not gross and icky. It's not like used car salesmen. Like we're all selling something. As physicians, we're selling our ideas to patients. And so learning how to do it in a way that you can keep your integrity intact is so huge.
Yeah.
That was a good example of it.
Yes. Okay. Well, I love it. It was truly so fun, Mel. Much more HC After Dark to come. I know that there was like a little footage released from that down in the speakeasy against my will, I guess, just because I look insane and grainy in the dark. But that's HC After Dark. That's show business.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Okay, well, until next time, thank you so much for tuning in today. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at FrancisMayMD. Check out our website, Hippocratic-Collective.com, for more shows and content like this. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Surgeon Interrupted. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And absolutely, come out and meet us on the road. Let's party.
Awesome.